Imagine this, in the quiet darkness of a womb, before a baby takes its first breath, before the heart beats in rhythmic harmony with life itself, something ancient and sacred unfolds. Not in the way science charts development, but in the realm beyond microscopes and measurements. A cosmic whisper. A spark of divine intelligence. A soul, older than time, crosses the veil, entering a fragile vessel of flesh. But when does this happen? At conception? At birth? Or is there a more mysterious, hidden moment when the eternal meets the temporal? Some ancient traditions say the soul chooses its body long before it takes form. Others say it arrives with the first breath. But what if neither are entirely true, and yet both hold fragments of a forgotten truth? In this video, we will not merely explore biological development or philosophical musings. We are diving into the sacred, often misunderstood question: when and how does the soul enter the human body? To understand this, we must venture beyond the physical plane and into the liminal, the in-between realms where consciousness hovers like a mist between worlds. This is where ancient mystics, Vedic seers, Gnostic sages, and indigenous shamans have long pointed us. Their wisdom was encoded in symbols, mythologies, and rituals, never spelled out plainly, always guarded, waiting for those ready to seek. In this journey, we'll uncover secret teachings from ancient civilizations, from the Egyptian Ka to the Vedic Atman, from Kabbalistic soul descent to Tibetan visions of the Bardo. We'll explore the soul's mysterious trajectory from the eternal to the ephemeral, and the sacred mechanics of incarnation. We'll ask, is the soul bound by time when it enters the body? Can a soul choose its parents, its lessons, its very form? And what signs, if any, mark this moment of arrival? But this isn't just esoteric theory. You'll discover how this knowledge can awaken something dormant within you, something ancient that remembers. This is not a story of biology. This is the story of arrival, the soul's descent through dimensions, through intention, through light. And as we unravel this sacred moment, you may begin to sense something stirring. A memory. A pull. As if your soul, too, is listening. To understand the soul's arrival, we must travel far beyond the confines of modern thought and into the cradle of the world's oldest spiritual traditions. In the temples of ancient Egypt, priests spoke of the Ka, the vital essence bestowed upon a person at birth, and the Ba, the eternal soul that descended from the divine realms. According to their sacred texts, the moment of ensoulment was not a singular instant, but a sacred alignment, when cosmic forces, the stars, and ancestral energies converged to weave a soul into flesh. This was not merely a birth, it was a rite of passage between dimensions. Similarly, in the Vedic traditions of India, the soul, Atman, is not created at conception or birth. It is eternal, timeless, and migrates from life to life, bound by the wheel of samsara until it achieves liberation. The Garbhopanishad, an obscure yet profound scripture, describes the stages of fetal development not just in biological terms, but in spiritual ones. It is said that around the 7th month of gestation, the soul becomes fully conscious of its new vessel and cries out, remembering past lives and pleading not to forget. But once born, that memory is veiled. The sacred moment is forgotten, yet it imprints itself deep in the subconscious. In Kabbalistic thought, the soul's descent is even more elaborate. The neshama, the divine breath of the soul, comes from the highest spiritual worlds, Absoluth and Bharaya, and descend step by step into the physical plane. But this descent must be earned and is often guarded. Mystics taught that the soul hovers above the body for days, even weeks, after conception, evaluating its karmic ties, its life path, and the energetic resonance of the parents. Only when certain conditions align does it enter fully, sometimes gradually, sometimes all at once, often during a moment of deep silence or spiritual vulnerability. It is not a mechanical process, it is a sacred pact. Why, then, has this knowledge been hidden or forgotten? One reason is that in modern times, we have reduced life to mechanics and materialism. Birth is viewed as biology. The soul, if considered at all, is treated as metaphor. Ancient teachings became myth, and myth became superstition. But the mystics never stopped whispering the truth, often in secret. In Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, details the soul's journey between death and rebirth, emphasizing the 49-day window during which the soul chooses its next incarnation. This doctrine mirrors similar ideas in Pythagorean philosophy and Orphic mystery schools of ancient Greece, where the soul was believed to undergo purification before re-entering the world of form. In many indigenous cultures, such as those of the Australian Aboriginals or Native American tribes, the soul is believed to exist before the body and to make its presence known through dreams, visions, or sacred ceremonies. The Hopi speak of children as coming from the stars, while certain African tribes hold rituals to welcome the soul before the birth itself, inviting it into the community. These are not symbolic tales, they are living traditions rooted in the intuitive knowing that life does not begin with the body, but with spirit. Across continents and centuries, the recurring theme is clear: the soul's arrival is not random. It is a sacred choreography, a mystical invitation from one realm to another. And it is only forgotten because we have forgotten how to see. But in dusting off the ancient scrolls, listening to the elders, and quieting the modern mind, we begin to remember. The soul has always spoken, through symbols, dreams, synchronicities. The question is, are we still listening? So how, exactly, does the soul enter the human body? And when? To answer this, we must first shift our understanding of time and space. In the higher realms described by mystics, time does not flow linearly. Past, present, and future coexist like pages in a vast cosmic book. The soul exists in that timeless realm. It is not born, it does not die, and it does not travel in the way we understand movement. Its descent into the physical body is more like a dimming of light, a narrowing of perception, a conscious act of compression, where something infinite chooses to become finite. The process begins, not at conception, but even before. According to many esoteric traditions, the soul chooses its incarnation with great deliberation. It surveys a multitude of potential lives, considering karmic debts, soul contracts, and lessons that must be learned. It is said that we choose our parents, our bodies, even the major trials we will face, not as punishment, but as opportunity. In the Akashic Records, the cosmic library of all souls and timelines, this information is encoded, and the soul consults it like an ancient map. At the moment of conception, a spiritual portal opens. This is not the soul's entry point, but rather the beginning of a sacred invitation. The union of sperm and egg creates more than a zygote, it produces a unique energetic signature, a vibration that resonates across dimensions. the soul becomes aware. It watches. It hovers. In some traditions, this phase is called the hovering soul, a period in which the soul remains in the aura of the developing fetus, not yet fully anchored, but deeply entwined. As the body begins to form, the soul may begin to thread itself into the subtle energy centers, the chakras, the nadis, the meridians. These serve as anchor points, like roots sinking into fertile soil. But the anchoring is gradual. In Kabbalistic teachings, this descent mirrors the Sephirotic tree, where divine energy filters down through stages of emanation, refining itself until it can inhabit a physical form. Each trimester may correspond to a different level of this descent, from pure essence, to archetype, to emotion, and finally to matter. But the true moment of soul entry varies. Some mystics say the soul enters fully in the quickening, around the 4th or 5th month of pregnancy, when the mother first feels movement. Others, like the ancient Hindus, describe the 7th month as the critical moment, when the fetus becomes sentient and spiritually aware, and the soul's memory briefly returns, only to be veiled again at birth. The Tibetan Buddhists speak of entry during conception, but say the soul's full awareness doesn't settle in until much later. One compelling teaching comes from Sufi mysticism, that the soul does not enter the body in a binary fashion but flows in like light into water. It seeps, it mingles, it dances between dimensions until the right vibrational balance is reached. The process is mystical, not mechanical. Just as light cannot be held or dissected, the soul cannot be pinned down to a date or hour. Its descent is an initiation, a spiritual ceremony known only to the divine and the soul itself. In rare cases, it is said that a soul may not enter at all. Some bodies are formed as vessels but remain empty, animated only by instinctual forces. Other times, a soul may enter, then depart, then return again, a phenomenon echoed in stories of near-death experiences or sudden spiritual awakenings in young children. And then there are walk-ins, souls that enter the body after birth, during a major life trauma or transformation, effectively replacing or joining the original soul's journey. While rare, these possibilities remind us that soul incarnation is not a fixed rule, but a fluid spectrum of experiences. Ultimately, the soul's arrival is not a single event, but a sacred unfolding. Like the blooming of a lotus, layer by layer, breath by breath, the eternal begins to remember itself in form. The fetus becomes a vessel. The heartbeat becomes a drum. And somewhere, in the silent spaces between synapses and cells, the divine remembers itself as you. To truly grasp the soul's descent, we must accept a truth that both liberates and unsettles. The soul is not bound to the body in the way we imagine. It is not inside us like a prisoner within a cage, nor does it sit neatly in the heart or brain. Rather, it interweaves with us, like wind through branches, like a flame illuminating the shape of a lamp without ever becoming it. The soul is presence, awareness, intelligence. And it can expand or contract depending on the state of our consciousness. In many spiritual traditions, the body is seen as a vessel, a temporary garment for the soul, a temple, as spoken of in early Gnostic writings. But not all temples are ready to house the sacred. The quality of the soul's embodiment depends on the conditions of the vessel, the emotional atmosphere of the womb, the karmic weight of ancestral lines, even the level of awareness carried by the parents. In fact, ancient mystery schools taught that pregnancy was not only the creation of life, but the cultivation of a sacred field, a spiritual ecology designed to welcome the soul with reverence. Rituals, chants, sacred foods, and meditations were used to attune the womb to a higher vibration. The soul would respond accordingly. Here, we must address a common misconception, that the soul is passive in this process. On the contrary, the soul is a sovereign being. It consents to incarnation. It chooses its entry not just based on love, but also necessity, karma, and purpose. Some souls come to heal bloodlines. Others come to teach. Some descend from higher realms, volunteers carrying luminous codes. Others are younger souls still learning to navigate duality and desire. The body it chooses, the life it enters, is never random. It is a mirror of what the soul must learn or give. This brings us to one of the most profound paradoxes of all. The soul's descent is both an act of love and an act of sacrifice. To incarnate is to forget. To bind oneself to form is to relinquish the vast, formless freedom of the higher realms. Many traditions speak of the veil of forgetfulness, a sacred amnesia placed upon the soul so that it may fully experience life without the overwhelming memory of eternity. This veil ensures that the lessons of life are felt deeply and authentically. And yet, there are moments, even in infancy, where the veil is thin, when the soul remembers who it is. You may have seen this in the eyes of a newborn that stare not at you, but through you, as if gazing at something long before language. You may have felt it in dreams, déjà vu, or sudden waves of emotion that do not belong to this lifetime. There is another layer to explore, multiple soul layers or aspects. Kabbalistic and Hindu systems both speak of multiple soul levels, some more grounded, others still dwelling in higher realms. The Egyptian soul was not a single entity but a composite, the Ka, Ba, Ak, and Ren, each representing different aspects of spiritual identity and consciousness. In this view, only a portion of the soul fully incarnates, while the rest remains above, guiding, watching, dreaming. This explains why we often feel like we are more than our bodies, more than our minds, as if part of us exists just beyond the veil. And then there are anomalies, mystical moments that defy the normal sequence of soul entry. There are stories of advanced souls who walk in during traumatic events, replacing the original soul with full permission, often because the previous soul's mission is complete or cannot continue. There are also tales from various traditions, Mayan, Tibetan, Celtic, of star children or sentinel souls, who are not bound by karmic law but who choose to incarnate during times of great transition to anchor divine energy. These beings often show signs of deep wisdom at an early age, experience intense sensitivity, and may struggle to adjust to the density of physical reality. What all these teachings point to is this: the soul's entry into the body is not a date on a calendar. It is a mystical dialogue between spirit and matter. It is a threshold, not a switch. The process is rich with symbolism, encoded with meaning, and shaped by factors beyond comprehension. And in understanding this, we begin to appreciate the miracle of our own existence. Not as an accident, not as a coincidence, but as a sacred journey, woven through lifetimes, born of intention, and crowned by a single truth: you are here on purpose. Now that we've walked through the veiled corridors of soul descent, tracing its journey from the eternal into the ephemeral, you may be wondering, what can I do with this knowledge? How does understanding the soul's arrival change my life here and now? The answer lies in remembering that this isn't just ancient philosophy, it's a map back to yourself. First, begin by honoring your incarnation. You are not merely a body navigating a chaotic world, you are a soul who chose to be here, now, for a reason. That simple shift in perspective can transform how you face challenges, relationships, and even your own pain. Life is not happening to you. It's unfolding for your growth. When you start to view your journey as a continuation of soul evolution, not as random chaos, you begin to reclaim your power. This shift reawakens a sacred sense of purpose, even in the ordinary. One way to connect more deeply with your soul is through pre-birth memory meditation. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and imagine yourself before you were born, hovering above the earth, choosing your life, your parents, your name. Ask yourself, what was I seeking? What soul lesson brought me here? Don't worry if you don't receive words. Sometimes it comes as a feeling, an image, a knowing. With time, this practice strengthens your connection to the part of you that remembers, the part untouched by time or trauma. Another profound technique is womb remembrance. Place your hands on your lower abdomen, breathe deeply, and visualize the moment of your soul's descent. Imagine light pouring into your fetal form, wrapping you in warmth and purpose. This exercise is especially powerful if you felt disconnected, lost, or out of place in your life. It reroots you in your origin, not biologically, but cosmically. You may even begin to receive insights, forgotten dreams, or emotional releases tied to your earliest spiritual memories. You can also work with soul journaling. Begin with the prompt, "Before I came here, I knew," and allow your hand to move freely across the page. Don't censor. Let your deeper self speak. This can bypass the logical mind and access soul-level truths buried beneath daily distractions. Over time, you may begin to feel like you're receiving letters from your higher self, messages encoded with compassion, clarity, and guidance. And then there is ritual, the language of the soul. Lighting a candle with intention, speaking aloud your desire to reconnect with your original essence, or creating a symbolic birth altar with objects that represent your spiritual path, all of these practices can awaken dormant memory. Remember, ritual doesn't require elaborate steps. What matters is sincerity. The soul responds to authenticity, not performance. For those on the path of parenthood or birth work, this knowledge can be life-altering. To see the unborn child not just as a forming body, but as an eternal soul arriving with purpose, transforms the pregnancy journey into something sacred. Speak to the soul. Sing to it. Invite it with reverence. Such acts ripple through the unseen, creating a bridge between worlds that the soul can walk across with peace. But be warned, the path of remembering is not always easy. As you begin to reconnect with your soul's deeper knowing, you may face unresolved pain, echoes of past lives, forgotten choices, or soul wounds carried into this incarnation. This is natural. When light returns to a room long kept dark, dust rises. Do not fear it. Instead, face it with love. Let your soul teach you how to forgive, release, and rise. Finally, remain open to synchronicity. The soul speaks in symbols, signs, and quiet nudges. A song, a dream, a sudden knowing, they are not random. Begin to live as if every moment could be a message. And over time, life will respond. The more you listen, the louder your soul becomes. In reclaiming the sacred memory of your arrival, you begin to live not just as a person surviving the world, but as a soul crafting it. And so, we arrive at the threshold once more, the place where eternity kisses time, where the unseen crosses into the seen. The moment of the soul's arrival is not simply a whisper lost in the womb, it is a timeless echo that continues to reverberate through every breath you take. Though we rarely remember it consciously, it shapes the arc of our lives from the shadows. It is there in the instinctual pull towards certain people, places, or paths. It is there in the quiet ache for purpose, in the moments of awe that make us feel more than flesh. The memory of that sacred descent lives in our bones, waiting to be recalled. We have explored how ancient cultures revered this mystery, not as science, but as sacred choreography. We've seen how the soul does not crash into the body but unfolds into it like a prayer, arriving not with noise, but with presence. We've walked through the mystical traditions that remind us, you are more than your body, your story, your name. You are a traveler between worlds, an eternal spark who chose this particular form, this moment in history, for reasons far beyond logic. The soul's arrival is not just a past event, it is a living truth that continues to unfold. Each time you remember who you really are, it is another arrival. Each time you act with compassion, choose growth over fear, or recognize the sacred in the mundane, you are realigning with that original purpose. This is the beauty of the human journey, not just that we forget, but that we are given infinite chances to remember. So now, perhaps the most important question is not when the soul enters the body, but how fully are we allowing it to enter our life right now? How often do we quiet the noise long enough to feel its presence? What would change if we treated every day as holy, every breath as a continuation of that sacred descent? Let this knowledge stir something ancient within you. Let it guide you back to the soul behind the mask, the silence behind the words. And if this exploration awakens something in you, curiosity, memory, longing, then follow it. Walk with it. Let it lead you deeper. Because the journey of the soul does not end with birth. It begins. And perhaps, it is just beginning again, right now. If this resonated with you, share your reflections in the comments. What part of your own soul's arrival do you feel calling for remembrance? And if you feel drawn to go deeper into the mysteries, subscribe, because together, we are not just learning, we are remembering.